Today I'm building an exoskeleton for my 1981 Hayabusa swapped city car. As if this car wasn't crazy enough, I'm making it even crazier and slapping a turbo on it so I can be sure to troll all the supercar owners with it. Alright, so I made these little two tubes that are gonna butt together. You'll see here in a little bit. But we've got to weld this nut to the end of the tube. Guys, I'm starting to see the vision. We've connected that to there. And then that to there. I'm trying to figure out if I want to add a bend here or not. I used the offset feature on my tubing notcher to kind of push this back so I can get access to these riv nuts. And then so we'll take our bar here and then we'll node it up in there. It'll go down to the bumper. Well, I need to see it. Here. Already? Alright, so this is my bumper. Kind of constructing it with some really thin tubing, you know, just in case I have to take a hit. But everything else is going to be 120 wall. And then I need to add, I'm going to add like a bumper. Something like that. And then I left room here because we want to build a radiator shroud and add a fan. Protect that radiator from rocks. I'm gonna go ahead and TIG weld this whole thing, and we can start working on the hoop bars right here. The straight bar did not look good, so I decided to kick this thing out, add some bends in it. Alright, so I bent up a test piece of tubing to see where I want to go with the bumper, and I think I like that. It looks like a giant smile. So yeah, I'm going to do some tweaking. I got to go to the store and get some more tubing. In the meantime, I'm going to build a little shroud for the fan. This is going to get welded onto the radiator, like that, and then I'll cut a hole in it for the fan. You might be thinking, Vasily, isn't this going to block all your airflow? Well, the cooling system I built is pretty overkill, and I drove it on the streets without a cooling fan just fine. It doesn't overheat, so this should be perfectly fine. I made this little jig out of some TIG filler wire to hold that tab in place. I welded it. Now I should have took the radiator off because I blew 2 holes in it. And so I had to take it off anyways and fix those 2 holes. And it was not fun. Alright, so I got it all welded. We're going to go ahead and trim it to length and then cap off the ends. now I decided to change the rear up and add some small bends up in the back to make it seem less sharp. And then we'll get started on our hoops to connect the bumper
to this back section.
Check that out, guys. It is coming out pretty slick. So we got the first bar bent. We got to trim it up back there and then add a bend here so it could node down into there. So that is going to be a tricky bend to pull off. We've got to angle this tube back into the bumper. Now if I do mess up, it's not a big deal. I'll just add a set of these clamps somewhere right there in the middle. Alright, so we got these two hoops down and it's level at the top. Put a mock-up tube here to see how everything would look. I got these two tubes tacked in and I really like how it looks. Now I did have to put a small splice right there, twist this down because it was very hard to mirror these two angles. Now I'm just experimenting. I think I want to add like a bend in the middle or at the ends. So yeah, something like that. Working on this top piece, I want to add some bends to kind of contour it to the windshield, make it look less boring. Okay, I'm just gonna level this off the window seal. Alright guys, so yeah, I don't know how I like that. I actually do not like that. Alright guys, so I added two gussets on each side to give it a much better look. And man, I am really in love with how this cage is coming out. Well, exoskeleton. We're supposed to make the car look aggressive, but it ended up making it look cute. So, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Really pleased with how it turned out. The front might need a little revision. And I was thinking of adding some kind of rock slider bars on the sides where the fenders and doors go, but we'll see. And at the end of the day, all this is removable. I mean, all I want really is just a street car, but a cool car nonetheless.
So now it's time to do some engine mods to get this thing ready to go back to the drag strip. So we're going to add in some heavy duty clutch springs. I'm going to weld up the clutch mechanism to make it solid, so there's no chatter. I'm also going to install a V-band on the exhaust to make turbo mounting really easy.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's like brand new oil.
Now if you're looking to upgrade your motorcycle's performance, make sure you check out Snitch Racing and tell them Vasily sent you.
We're gonna go ahead and weld the V-band on right here. That way when we pull the engine we won't have to remove the exhaust. We could just simply unbolt the V-band. Okay, so some of you did tell me to take out that oil restrictor. So as far as I've read on the forums, it doesn't really matter if you leave it in or not. But I guess just to be safe, I'm going to take it out. That restrictor is for when you leave the oil cooler in. Okay, so you guys see that? Yeah, so that's what I'm gonna weld up.
This is a great way to save about $300 doing this yourself. You see I used filler wire as shims there to get the spacing right, and then I stuck it under my press brake and welded it all out. Basically what this does from the factory, every time you downshift or on decel, it limits the torque to the rear wheel. I can't really explain it that well, so I'll put a diagram up here. But anyways, in drag racing, it leads to crazy inconsistencies with the clutch. So in drag racing, every second counts, and that's why this mod is pretty important. It's pretty crazy how much slop this thing had from factory, considering it spins over 9,000 RPM. So we got that thing installed there. We're going to go ahead and torque it down. So I got to own up to my mistake. I actually put the clutch in wrong. I didn't realize there were 3 different kinds of plates that are supposed to go in a specific orientation. Now the first one I nailed, but I should have looked at the owner's manual. And last but not least, we'll be installing these super heavy duty clutch springs. Alright guys, moment of truth. Let's see if I put everything together properly. Very loud. Alright, so check this out. The V-band is really close. Really close. So I'm just going to weld it straight up to this flange. Before I do that, I'm going to get a Dremel and cut out these little walls on each side. So there I got that flange port matched for the 2.5 inch V-band. So this turbo you'd normally run on like a V6 or even a Civic. It's a T3 turbo. Not sure what spec it is, but the car should have no issues spooling it because the car is much heavier than the bike, and people run these turbos on bikes all the time. So if anything, the turbo might be a tad bit too small. We'll see though. Alright guys, so I got my turbo V-band flange finished. It was pretty difficult to get up in there, but we got it. I want to say huge shout out to HTP for their amazing welders. This one does both MIG and TIG at the same time. Really nice machine. Alright guys, moment of truth. Up to this point, I've just been winging it. Dude, that is perfect. Alright guys, if you take a look, the turbo is much lower than the oil pan, which means I'm gonna have to buy an oil scavenge pump to pump that oil back into the engine so it doesn't ruin our turbo seals. Now honestly guys, for winging it, the turbo
placement is amazing. I mean, it's tight in there, but I'm convinced that's the best place we could put it. It's kind of at an angle, and you really don't want any more past that, but that should be fine. And then this will be twisted upwards, and then the air intake should clear. Exhaust should be pretty easy. Woo! All right, guys, first start with the turbo. Let's see how it sounds.